Victor is head of the lower school at the North Cross School in Roanoke. Yeah, Victor, if you don't mind, just go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience. Give them an idea of what you do currently, maybe a little bit of insight into your educational journey, and then we can go from there.
Yes, thank you. My name is Victor Lamas. I am the director of the lower school at North Cross School in Roanoke, Virginia, which is an independent school serving about 600 students in junior kindergarten three, so 3-year-olds, all the way up to senior year of high school or upper school. We are three divisions: lower school, which is early childhood program, JK3 through kindergarten, and then first through fifth grade; middle school, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade; and then upper school, which is ninth, 10th. This is my 10th year in this role as director of the lower school. I'm also the assistant head of school. We used to call it head of school for academics, but it's in the nature of independent schools. Sometimes roles evolve based on strengths and how the person above you actually utilizes you. So for the most part, I'm simply assistant head of school, and I play a sort of jack of all trades role with that. And that started during COVID, right? I was put in charge of the COVID committee, which was, as we all know, schools was a lot of fun. And then I first came to, my trajectory is, I don't know, I don't know if it's unusual. I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I graduated from Washington and Lee University here in Virginia. And then I spent a year up at the Potomac School as a student teacher, kind of the plane circling the airport, deciding if it wants to land in law school airport. And what happened was I got a job offer for this school down in Roanoke, Virginia, and somehow I've been here ever since. And the second half of my life has been here in this school at North Cross School. I started as a fourth grade teacher for 3 years, and then I spent 13 years having an utter blast as a fifth grade teacher. I spent a year in the upper school exclusively after that, teaching AP courses and running their global studies department. And then I came back to the lower school to be the principal or the director. I still continued to teach AP World History and some electives in the upper school and middle school. For the most part, my trajectory, I mean, my life has been a few years, obviously the last decade, doing administration.
Yeah, no, thank you, Victor. That's fantastic. And yes, if you remember correctly, I went to the Potomac School as a student all 13 years of my life. My daughter's there now as a sophomore, so small world moment indeed. Victor, if you could describe for me, take us behind the curtains, if you will, to the lower school there at North Cross. You've obviously had time and perspective of having been there. In your mind, what makes the lower school sort of the unique learning setting that it is for the learners that come through that door every day?
I think what makes it unique is, I mean, all the factors that you get in an independent school: smaller class sizes, a more flexible curriculum, more hands-on interactions, obviously, in terms of teachers and parents and students. I think at North Cross, there's definitely all of that has added up to more than simply the sum of its parts. The students that go through here, especially when they start in the lower school, well, they grow up and they send their children here. There definitely seems to be, and I've seen it in all my years here, a real bond that develops between the student and the teachers and the student and the school. I think that the teachers here are here because it's a calling, and overall, they have the flexibility and the creativity to, in some ways, bring out their best selves as teachers, and they're given the framework to do so, right? Which is a combination of autonomy, although not complete autonomy.
Sure.
And also, the parent community here and the student community, for the most part, is very supportive of our teachers. And so that helps, right? It helps build a trust and a bond. On my own end, I still am in contact with students that I taught 20 some years ago.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
I Zoom with them, or when they're in town, I have lunch with them. I'm now there. Some of their children are in this building, and their parents, right now, they're boring parents.
Right. Yeah.
There definitely is a loyalty there,
Yeah, no, that's special. That's very special. If we zoom out slightly beyond the lower school, still obviously at North Cross in general, talk to me about the school's mission, Victor. Are there certain, what I would call non-negotiables? Are there things that you all, as a school, sort of regardless of what's going on around you, some schools will say core beliefs. What are those things that you all sort of hold firmly with you, to you, that folks know, if they jump in the elevator, what are those two or three or four core beliefs that anybody could point to for North Cross?
One of those things that we believe in is in creating a well-rounded student. For sure, academics are the priority here, and the kids, the students here, they work hard. Students are not robots, but overall, the students push themselves, they work hard, but in doing so, they're given a lot of opportunities, of which most take advantage of these opportunities to be in a musical, to play a sport, to be a part of student government. And to speak in front of groups, to speak publicly, to carry oneself in a certain way. And so one thing and that's important to us, and we all seem to, whether speaking about it overtly or doing it subconsciously, we seem to work hard to produce students that come out of our place that seem to be a little bit more on the ball, what is reported to us when they get to college or university. Being able to write a paper, being able to speak publicly, give a presentation, carry oneself in a certain courteous and approachable manner. That seems to be something that throughout the years, as things change, that has not changed with what our school views as a priority. I would argue even more. We need to be doing that even more, right? As so much more, in some ways, so much more parenting and more stress is put on the school to do all sorts of things that sometimes was often considered the purview of parents. More and more, we need to double down on that, teach how to shake a hand, how to approach, how to be confident in your manners and in your way of being out there in the world, to sell yourself and to produce as a person. The success, we call them soft skills, but someone said a better word, success skills.
Yeah, no, I would completely agree. Victor, you mentioned earlier about the parents, some of whom are former students. I think you used the word earlier, loyalty. So would like to shift to the parents, if you will, at North Cross, and then sort of beyond North Cross in general too, to talk about. And I guess my first question is, what do you hear from families? What do you see families prioritizing right now in terms of schools that they're choosing for their children? Obviously, your perspective is North Cross, but in general, I imagine you have conversations with parents both within and outside of North Cross in general. What are you hearing from parents in terms of either why they're choosing North Cross or in general, what are they looking for right now in a school?
Many of the things that I'm hearing it does coalesce in a few general themes. One that is often explicitly said or not explicitly said is parents want their children to go to a place where their children will be surrounded by students that have similar, that their families have similar goals, which is to become educated, well-rounded in a place that is, and it's such a big word, but there's so many meanings there, but in a place that is safe, right? And where they know that their child is seen individually by the teacher and is cared for and is known and has the power and capacity to help their child without much bureaucracy standing in the way of a teacher doing so. The most basic things, right? They want their child to be physically safe, and they want their child to be free of bullying, being cruelly teased, of being ignored, of feeling small. And so I think that is one thing that parents want that. Obviously, parents have wanted that for millennia. I do think that has probably increased overtly because in some ways also people are having fewer kids. And so they put a lot, more of their worry into creating an environment for their child. At the same time, they also want their child to be challenged and pushed in a way that allows them to grow. It's not easy. And sometimes
I know.
those things, you enter a gray zone of one is not always, how can their child fail safely and without successful failure, right? Or can their child fail, but in a way that the next iteration that the child makes is path to success, where a failure will not bruise them so badly that, that it did not allow them to improve.
Right.
It's a combination of those factors. I also think they want a community. They want to be a part of something. Everyone wants to be a part of something. And that's another thing that this school, I think, does a very good job of providing. Sometimes they think they want a lot of technology, and that has changed over the years. Now it's, will my child be on screens all day? And we'll say
Right.
no. We will provide that non-total screen experience for your child, right?
Right.
Where in
Yeah.
lower school, it's still paper and pencil. Obviously the teacher has the screen and things like that. It's so many things. But yet they also want STEM experiences for the child. Vastly amplified our offerings for STEM. We've started a drone. We're going to start a drone club in about a month. That'll have some lower schoolers and middle schools together. Robotics. So they
Right.
also want those things. They want those things that they see as important to their child being successful in the future.
Right. Or what they think are important. So that's the perfect segue to my next question, Victor. You just started talking about sort of, what parents want, what they don't want. I guess that's the next question is what has changed, like you said, in the last 3 to 5 years? You can go back before COVID, and this can be really around anything. It could be around the technology piece you talked about, homework, right? And I remember as a lower school director myself, homework was always a popular topic of conversation, and you would find parents along the entire spectrum, right? That you don't give enough homework to, you give way too much to that's the perfect amount. So again, whether or not specifically at North Cross or in general, where do you see parents' expectations having changed in terms of maybe what they wanted 3, 5, 7 years ago versus what you just talked about in terms of what they want now?
I think one thing that has explicitly either changed or amplified is the desire of parents, of a group of parents, to want reassurance that their child is going to, especially if they've gone from a public school and entered our school, they want their child to feel physically safe and also mentally safe,
Yep.
right? And they believe that we can provide much better guardrails, but also that and a community that believes those same things. Another thing that I've seen change is, this is probably more over the last 10 years gradually,
Sure.
is
Yeah.
the concern about technology. You were a part of this, the iPad arms race years ago, right? Everyone had to get iPad, everyone had to get technology, right?
1 to 1, 1 to 1.
1 to 1, right? Now much to the concern that I get from parents that have been here a while or parents coming in is reassurance that their child will still be doing some of those analog things
Mhm.
that, maybe a lot of research and their own gut tells them is more beneficial for especially a younger student. I mean, those are the two
Right.
main that I've seen. And we always have a contingent families from either to the left or the right that are worried about, certain social trends and things like that.
Oh yeah,
That
I would
thing.
say that, yeah, that's the last couple of years for sure. All the books being canceled or not canceled. Yeah, I mean,
We
I was. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say we've had some of our issues with that, but not as much as sometimes I hear from other folks in other parts of the
Yeah,
state.
yeah. No, I can
Uh,
imagine. Again, I'm up here in Northern Virginia. My most recent principalship was in Montgomery County, just over the border in Maryland. And even within Montgomery County, which is huge, vastly different views. I mean, I don't know if you saw, there was a parent group that went all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, having sued the district for, I believe it was on religious grounds in terms of certain books being used in the curriculum when they just wanted to, quote, opt out, right? I mean, again, it went all the way up to the Supreme Court. So, yeah, I would agree with you that specifically the last couple of years has also been a pretty hot topic, if you will. Shifting to teachers, our friends, as I used to call them, like you said earlier, who have autonomy but not complete autonomy, who, they're the ones that really make it happen on a daily basis. And so, from a teacher perspective, how do you see their role having shifted over the last couple of years? Had it shifted, Victor? I don't want to assume that you feel like it has shifted. Again, as a school leader myself, I saw that role shifting probably over the last 5 to 7 years. But in general, are there shifts that you've seen in terms of teachers, whether in the classroom, outside of the classroom? I know in general, teachers are probably taking on more nowadays than they used to, getting paid the same, if you will. So in general, how do you see the role of a teacher having shifted or not over the last couple of years?
there are some shifts I've seen, and some of these things I say as a generation. You and I are of that. When I first entered this business, so to say, independent schools, I was given keys to a bus. Hey, you're going to need to take a bus driver test because you have to coach a middle school team, and you're going to drive your own team. And I nodded. I was like, yes,
Yeah, exactly.
okay. I thought that's like, I'm young. I was hired. I felt lucky to even get a job, and so I just nodded. Okay, and so I still have my bus driver's license.
See, there you go.
One thing that has definitely shifted over the years is many teachers saying no to such things. I'm not going to drive a bus. I need a, and then over time in the independent school world, what was probably considered part of your contract now is stipended, right? I found that COVID also amplified a lot of this. Also, teachers over time, and this is something that I've spoken to with other independent school administrators. Teachers use and is their benefit. It's in their contract. We get more subs now, right? They use every drop of their PTO and things like that. So it's just I live in the world of making sure that my substitute budget and that I have good substitutes to make sure, right, that is covered. And that's, I think, a general trend I've seen spoken, in talking with other independent school administrators. The other things that I definitely have noticed with teachers, obviously, the expectation of parents, obviously, in regards to teachers making sure that they're going above and beyond to really know a person's child and to be aware of the child's inner world with peers and other things in a way that when I was a student was not considered part of your average teacher's.
Hmm.
Now, I would say when I was a young teacher, I found all that stuff fascinating. So I was already involved in that. So that's the main trend. I think sometimes teachers feeling really invested in their students in a way because they're more is expected of them to be invested with a child's, emotional world and that. And at the same time, occasionally feeling a little tired by that, right? Exhausted
Yep.
in terms of what is expected of them. I do find coming across my desk as an admin, involving myself more in these things than I involved my administrator when I was a young teacher.
For sure. I'm just curious in terms of accessibility. I just wrote down that word. I feel like parents either feel like they're entitled to more accessibility to teachers over these last 3 to 5 years. Again, as a principal myself, I feel like parents would either email or call teachers all the time to say, "Hey, can I just stop by here?" And again, I don't think parents inherently think, "Oh, just by quote stopping by, I've now made that teacher have to, rearrange." So do you find, and I don't see this as a negative in general, but do you find it in general there at Northcross parents are wanting more access to the teachers?
Somewhat. I think our community goes about it overall in a very good way. I don't think
Okay,
they
good.
abuse
Yeah.
that. They don't simply, and we obviously have either spoken or unspoken policies to parents not simply going to walk into a classroom.
Yeah,
They need permission. They need a badge. That said, we have a battalion of parent volunteers that help us. That if they didn't exist, it would be harder for us to function, far harder.
for sure.
So our teachers our parents email, they ask for phone conferences. I always encourage my colleagues, don't let it get past the second email. Just pick up the phone. Human connection's always better. Have them come in. We have parent teacher conferences, but it's really not enough. And so the expectation is that our parents and our teachers are available so long as the parent goes about it in a correct manner,
The right way.
scheduling a
Yeah, sure.
conference, scheduling a phone conference, that they are very accessible to the parents, that the teachers are. I
Yep.
think that is I think that is part of that's part of what parents pay for. I mean,
Yeah, you sign up for that. Yep.
they sign up. That is part of the product. It is also to their benefit. I'm a firm believer in communicate, over communicate, and build trust and significance with the parents. Know your students' birthdays. For example, I heartily recommend this to any administrator. Spend the time. There's a program called Loom. It's a video program, Loom. We
Yep.
learned about it during COVID. During COVID, I started making, I have a list of all the students' birthdays, and I started making birthday videos for them with, for the younger ones, I wear our Raider helmet. And I do from this office, right? Winnie the Pooh right there.
Right.
I give them and I've been doing this now for almost 5, maybe 6 years. And so some students, I finally stop when they reach 9th grade. But I make a batch of a child will get a video from me, from Mr. Lamas. And that builds enormous goodwill with parents and with, right? I'm a firm believer in if you have a child in your class, especially a child maybe whose parents really sacrifice monetarily to bring their child there, and you find out that they're in some sort of sports league outside of the school, right? Especially if they're a younger student in lower school and they're playing on some basketball league or football league or soccer, what have you, right? Go to one of those. Go schedule a time, go and see your student play or perform in something outside of school. And that pays enormous dividends. I'm a firm believer in that. And I view it as a soft expectation to my colleagues that they build this trust with parents because, students learn better when they trust the teacher, and parents listen to hard truths when when coming from someone that they know cares about their child and really knows their child.
That's the old win-win, as I used to say. Always looking for as many opportunities for win-win as possible. Victor, just the last question or two here before I let you go. I'll give them both to you at the same time so you can plan accordingly. First question is, thinking ahead, what's one or two things that most excites you about the direction of Northcross? And then the second one is, for either the aspiring leader, current school leader, in general, what's maybe one or two things that you would want to make sure that somebody knows about school leadership? And then the last thing is I'll give you any opportunity to share, again, anything about yourself or the school in general that you'd like to.
All right. Well, one of the trends that I'm excited about, and excitement also, excitement can include nervousness, right? I am excited about using AI appropriately as a tool for teachers, right? I know sometimes the AI world talks a lot about and you have these schools that are developing, right? I am really interested in AI. I know that when I was teaching, and the last time I was teaching, say in the lower school in fifth grade, I was spending a lot of time doing things that now AI could help me shave a lot of time doing. And I did it because I was excited about doing it, was customizing the work to include my students' names and the books we were reading and the history we were reading into everything, like even their math word problems, right? Customize the work. And that by customize, I mean you're turning a grade level into a mini universe where the children are characters in their own educational story, and they're interacting not just in the real world, but in their paper. And I don't mean like a screen world. I'm talking about just
No, I get it.
The paper and pencil world, but they're seeing themselves in the paper and pencil world, their dogs, their older siblings, their classmates, their friends, maybe the pharaoh Tutankhamun, because they're learning about ancient Egypt. And it's right there in their identify the simple subject. It's right there in the find the 1/4 of 5/6 fraction Singapore bath, seeing themselves in that work. I was doing that and spending a lot of time deleting, rewriting things and putting the students' names. Now AI could help a teacher do that. And the other holy grail of teaching is how do you, in a group setting, which is where most people are going to be educated, most people cannot afford a tutor, right? An Aristotle. So how do you differentiate realistically in a way that doesn't exhaust the teacher, right? And so I think AI could also help do that, right? Building profiles of students and then using that to, everyone gets the quiz about the same concept, but it would be differentiated. I'm passing out Larry's, I'm passing out Mary's, and Mary and Larry have a either slightly different or maybe very different quiz that is assessing them appropriately and scaffolding them appropriately. What is something I would tell aspiring administrators? And this is something that I think I've been able to do is make it fun. You have to make it fun. Again, if there's more freedom at an independent school and more freedom at your independent school, use it. For example, always had very good supervisors, bosses, so to say. I bring a dog every day to school, a golden retriever, who is extremely well trained and safe and gentle with 3-year-olds and high schoolers. But again, the dividends that pays to have say, for example, a lower school dog that is sweet and gentle and therapeutic for the children who adore him. I know most schools wouldn't allow that. I'm allowed that here, so I'm going to use it. Use whatever freedom you are allowed, every drop of it, to make it fun. Make the principal's office be a fun place, not always a place that you are sent. Walk around also. Do not get stuck in your office. Walk around. You get a lot done. You get a lot observed. You think a lot, but you also be visible. Be a cop on the beat, right? Sometimes I will take I'll take a desk and I'll put it right there in the hallway. Our lower school is kind of an L, right? So that elbow is I'll often put a desk there, and sometimes I'll have the dog Toby with me or not.
Right.
I'll just be working on my laptop, answering emails, but I'm there and I'm visible and I can sort of monitor just how are the students hallway, but also simply to say hello and give high fives to students as they're
Yep.
going outside. And then I'll visit classrooms without interrupting a teacher. Sometimes I'll walk around so a colleague can ask me something or have me do something. Raise your teachers' desks, lower their desks, change their clock batteries. If a toilet in a 3-year-old classroom bathroom needs plunging, don't wait for the custodians to do it. Get the plunger, do it yourself. Do small repairs and things like that yourself. If a trash bag hasn't been emptied because your custodial staff is shorthanded that day, don't wait. Tie it, remove it yourself, replace the bag, and your colleagues see that. And that also that builds community and that builds trust. And then finally, about myself, I am going to give you a bit of news. I've loved being a principal, but I'm going back to teaching next year. My school has been very supportive. And I said, you know what? I'm 50. I still have plenty of energy and time left, but I had a lot of fun as a teacher. So maybe surprising to many, to leave this. And I want to be teaching's where it's at in that sense, right? I think I've made for myself inside my heart my most meaningful impact as a teacher, and so I've made the decision to go back to teaching. I'm not sure yet exactly where the head of school, but she has been wonderfully supportive and loyal, and I said you're going to get a good teacher, right? You're going to get there's still time for me to learn more stuff and to try to innovate and to test out things. But I simply, as you get older, try to do more and more things that you find are fun. And I had a lot of fun as a teacher. And so I want to go back. So this is my last year as an administrator, maybe for a while or for forever. Because I don't want to. I use the Star Trek analogy for those of you that the Star Trek movies, right? Admiral Kirk, you know what? He wanted to go back and command his starship because in reality, in some ways, you have more control as a classroom teacher.
Yep.
And so I will say, there is that limit to administration in some ways. There are many things that you can direct and you can have your vision. And at the same time, never forget that it's the teachers it is the teachers that make the school, and find good ones. That's also key as an administrator. In reality, it starts in picking the right people.
Yeah.
Pick the right people to teach.
Yep. No, I agree. Victor Lamas, I want to thank you again for your time. It's been a pleasure. We will be in touch again very soon, I'm sure. But thank you again, and I'll wish you well.
Thank you. Love to talk more with you. Okay.
All right, buddy. Thank you. Enjoy your day.
All right.